Hola, bienvenidos a Lección 6. Grammar from the PDF grammar section in your lesson content. I'll be walking you through several key topics that we'll be discussing in this chapter. The pages will cover from 103 to 106. Let's get started with our objectives. We're going to talk about conjugating stem-changing verbs, which are O to UE. If you remember in Lección 5, we talked about stem-changing verbs that were from E to IE. So this is the second type, and in the next Lección, we'll view the last and final stem change. We'll recognize affirmative and negative expressions. We'll also use them in sentences, so I have a lot of examples. Discuss the importance of diet and give some suggestions for diet. Good, healthy diet. All right, first, stem changing verbs. Hopefully this feels so much more familiar because it's the same concept of where you stem change everywhere except nosotros and vosotros. And also the endings still continue to change. This is an ER verb, so you have vuelvo, vuelves, vuelve, volvemos, volvéis, and vuelven. The sorry, 1 second. Sorry, guys. There is only one O you'll ever have, but keep in mind, let's say there's an E and an O. I don't know. I think there's like one verb like that, like devolver, I'm thinking of off the top of my head. So it still remains to be the second vowel in the stem, which in this case we're looking at the O ending. So remember, nosotros does not stem change, and neither does nosotros. Let's see what other verbs do this. Let's go over these. Almorzar, costar, dormir, poder, recordar, volar. I want to look at what the el, ella, usted conjugation would look like. So that's the ones we're going to go over now. I'll just, if you know what, why don't you try and just pause right here and try to write down the el, ella, usted conjugation for each verb, because that's what I'm about to go over with you. So go ahead and try. And I'm going to tell you them now. Almuerza. Don't forget, it's an A ending. Almuerza. Cuesta. What something cost. Cuesta. Duerme. Puede. Recuerda. Y vuela. These are not the only O to UE stem changing verbs, but this is, some common ones. Let's do a little practice. Which verb would you pick to complete the sentence? Again, focusing on the conjugation. So go ahead and pause and give yourself some time to try it out, and then we'll go over these. Again, we're looking at the verb costar for the first one and almorzar for the second. So I'm going to go over the answers. Las estampillas no cuestan mucho en la oficina de correos. Cuestan because we're using the ellos, ellas, ustedes form. Cuestan. And number 2, remember, nosotros does not have a stem change, so it would stay as almorzamos. Nosotros siempre almorzamos en casa. Perfecto. Let's talk about some affirmative and negative expressions. This chart could look like a lot at first, but this is going to be our main source of information. However, I have lots of examples in upcoming slides. So for right now, we're just going to go over each affirmative word, go over the negative complements. For example, something, nothing, someone, no one type of complement, affirmative and then negative, and then look at lots of examples. So I'll go over each one and try to repeat them. Algo, alguien, alguno, which can also be algún, algunos, or algunas, because that's an adjective. So you'll see it match the noun. For example, any student, algún estudiante. Let's say it's any female, alguna estudiante, a female student. Algunos estudiantes, for example. Let's continue on. Siempre. Just additional phrases. Alguna vez. It could be plural. algunas veces, or simply say a veces. También, and using o, and you can have two of them because it could be either or you can just use one o as or. Again, you're going to have to reference this as you continue through working through the grammar. Let's look at the negative. Nada. Nadie. Just like we had a bunch of algún, alguno, here we have ninguno, ninguna, sorry, or ningún. This will not be plural because it's zero, so it can't be plural. It stays singular. Nunca. Or you can use jamás. You can even use them together. Nunca jamás. Tampoco is the counterpart of también. And just like we had o, now we have ni. So let's look at several examples. First, you can use a double negative in Spanish. A triple negative even. So if you're going to answer questions, for example, ¿Ustedes van a la playa algunas veces or a veces? No answers the question, and then we have to say we don't go ever. No, no vamos nunca. Now the truth is, if you're going to use the word nunca, like the negative word itself, if you put it in front of the word, you can say no, nunca vamos. You still need the first no to answer the question, but you can say no, nunca vamos. But you're not going to say no, no, and then nunca. You can only use the no and the nunca if it's in the order you see. No first, the verb, and then nunca. So again, I have a lot of examples because I know this could be a little complicated because when we're dealing with sentences, we need to see it in its use. So here are some sentences with affirmative words and then answering them in the negative. ¿Quieres algo de beber? No, no quiero nada de beber. ¿Tienes algo en tu mochila? No, no tengo nada en mi mochila. And notice how the underlined word is matching, being its counterpart. So we match algo with nada. Let's see here. Alguien matching with nadie. ¿Conoces a alguien famoso? No, no conozco a nadie famoso. ¿Hay alguien en tu casa en este momento? No, no hay nadie en mi casa en este momento. Let's see. And I know this could look really confusing, but just keep in mind, algún and ningún is the base. It's just, it can be masculine, feminine. Algún can be plural. Ningún is never plural. That's why in the top bar, there's an S on algún, but there's no possibility of ningún being plural. So let's hear how they sound. ¿Sabes cocinar algún plato hispano? No, no sé cocinar ningún plato hispano. This is feminine now. ¿Sirven alguna comida panameña en ese restaurante? No, no sirven ninguna comida panameña en ese restaurante. So we're matching algún with ningún, alguna with ninguna. And just remember, algún is similar to the indefinite article un, una, unos, o unas. ¿Tienen una pregunta? Just like you can say, ¿tienen alguna pregunta? Phrases like algún día, like one day. And if you're like some days, algunos días, ningún amigo, not one friend. It could be feminine. Ninguna amiga, not one friend, but this one's referencing a female. And let's see, siempre is going to be our counterpart of nunca or jamás. ¿Siempre haces ejercicio? Nunca hago ejercicio. Or remember what I said, if you wanted to put the negative word after the verb, then you can have no in the front of the verb. So a similar way to express the same idea, no hago ejercicio nunca. ¿Siempre vas al centro comercial? Nunca voy al centro comercial. O no voy nunca al centro comercial. También is agreeing with affirmative statements. Tampoco agrees with negative statements. So somebody says, yo tengo un perro. You're like, oh, yo también, if you have a dog. Mi madre es de Filadelfia. If yours is too, you can say, ah, mi madre también. Yo soy latina. Are you latina? Yo también. Me gusta comer bananas. Do you also like to eat bananas? Then you can say, yo también. Me too. Yo también. Now, if you're doing more of a me gusta, then it would be a mí también. Just a little side note. Tampoco agrees with the negative statements. Yo no tengo un gato. If you don't have a cat either, you would say yo tampoco. No bebo café nunca. This is true for me. No bebo café nunca. If you never drink coffee, you can say yo tampoco. No me gusta comer zanahorias. If you also do not eat carrots, then you can say yo tampoco. No soy vieja. If you're not an old woman either, then you can say yo tampoco. So let's do a quick practice. Which affirmative or negative expression would fit? Go ahead and give yourself time to try if you need more time. Otherwise, we'll go over the responses. For number 1, ¿alguien viaja a España durante el verano? Because we're looking to see if someone travels. ¿Alguien? De alguna vez just doesn't flow nicely. You have to do a little reworking of that sentence. También viaja a España. And it's just better than saying también, because también is mostly when you're agreeing with the statement, not asking it. Again, mostly, not always. And for the second one, los niños nunca van a zoológico. This one's a little bit easier because ningún would be like with a noun with it. So like no kid. But in this case, it said the kids. And then there's a verb. So it doesn't work grammatically. And nada saying the kids nothing. So it's really saying the kids never go to the zoo. Again, if you have more questions about affirmative and negative words, the examples that we looked at, take your time, look through them. You don't have to go with the full pace of the video. You can take your time. Let's lastly look at the importance of a good diet. So we'll go over some of these phrases, and then we have a few ways to cook meals, and then that'll be the summary. So we'll just go over these phrases here. No debe comer azúcar, grasas, comidas picantes, comidas muy condimentadas. But what should you eat? Debe comer fibras, vegetales, una porción más pequeña. What should you drink? Debe tomar mucho líquido, caldos claros, agua, agua. Debe seguir una dieta. What kind of diet? Especial, balanceada, con poca grasa, sin sal, con pocos carbohidratos, con poca pasta o harina. So again, go over these. Definitely great advice. And lastly, modos de preparar la comida. How can you prepare food? Asar, freír, hervir, cocinar al vapor, o cocinar al horno, which also can be hornear. Bueno, muchas gracias for going over these key things with me. Nos vemos en la próxima lección.